Good morning, friends. It is Link, the Gulf Coast Gardener. Today is Tuesday, September the 5th, and it has been a hot and dry and windy summer here in Jamaica Beach on Galveston Island, but I think the tables may have turned just a bit. We had some rain yesterday. There is a hint of fall in the air, or at least I want to imagine that there is. So I spent some time over the weekend getting the beds ready for fall gardens. So let's go take a look at what we've been up to. Now this is one of my large raised beds. I had it built by Earth Creations Landscaping. So if you're looking for a team that can put together some raised beds for you, check out Earth Creations here in Galveston, Texas. Really like this raised bed. Now, it was full of zinnias a few weeks ago, but the lack of rain and the heat, they absolutely burned up. So I cleared out the zinnias and I brought in 50 bags of hummus and manure that I pick up from Home Depot. It's only $2 a bag, and you get a discount off that when you buy a bunch of them. So I got them for a little bit under $2 a bag. I'll put a picture up on the screen. It's one of my favorite soil amendments. It's effectively adding compost to your garden, and it's not very expensive at all. Now over on the west side of the house, things are actually looking pretty good, especially after I got everything weeded and composted and mulched in. Now this is my Mexican oleander plant. I've done several videos on these guys. It's a fantastic flowering perennial. It flowers profusely pretty much year round. As you can see, it makes a really pretty container plant. Check out those flowers in there. So Mexican oleander, it flowers, the pollinators love it. It makes a bunch of seeds, so it's really easy to make extra plants. I've probably got 50 or so in the back that I started from seed. So Mexican oleander, fantastic container plant. I've also got some on the side of the garage that I'll show you in a couple seconds. Now this is actually looking really good. Now it took a few hours of work to get to this point, but check out these guys. Now these are star jasmine, and they don't mind the heat whatsoever. You can see they climb readily up the side of your house or a column if you give them something to climb on. But I'm really happy with these star jasmine. I don't water them very often at all. They're very self-sufficient. They do freeze back in the winter, but these all came back after a freeze over Christmas. Now, this is a Mistflower. This is a volunteer that popped up here, and I just left it here because it's so pretty. Full afternoon sun, doesn't mind at all. Really happy with Mistflower, one of my favorite perennials. Now these are birds of paradise. Again, they tolerate the heat and the dry weather. They're flowering a bit. They haven't flowered very much this year just because of the lack of rain, but they're hanging in there. And as you can see, I've got this all mulched in really nicely. Now this isn't mulch, it is organic compost that I pick up from the local hardware store. I put a picture up on the screen. I can never remember the name when I'm doing a video, but I'll put a picture of the bag. Gosh, inflation has really affected the price of soil amendments though. I recall these used to be $2.50 or so a bag, and they're up to $4.50 or a little bit higher, so it's kind of disappointing how expensive everything is getting. But look how nice this looks. So this will suppress weeds, and this organic compost, which is a bit like mulch, will break down and feed the soil. And that's really the bulk of what I put into my soil is soil amendments. I don't use that much fertilizer, a little granular fertilizer, a little liquid fertilizer once in a while, but by and large, it's mostly just soil amendments. Now, check out the Victoria Blue Salvia. Absolutely beautiful. One of my favorite perennials, just covered in these large black carpenter bees. It's their favorite plant. They're just all over it. The hummingbirds like these, the bees, all the beneficial insects really like Victoria Blue Salvia, and it's just so pretty. I've got a big stand of lemongrass back there. I need to figure out how to cook with lemongrass. I really like the way it looks just as an ornamental, but it's very useful in the kitchen as well, so need to figure that out. This Peggy Martin rose, struggling a little bit in the heat, but it's doing nicely. It's growing up and down the stairwell. We'll have a bunch of roses in the spring and early summer next year, so really looking forward to that. And back here, this is a giant leopard plant you really grow these in full shade. It's a fantastic container plant, really good house plant. I've got it in a less than ideal spot, but it gets enough shade from the other plants that it's hanging in there and doing okay. Over on the east side of the house, you can see I have another one of these beautiful oleanders in a container. Just love these flowers. They're so pretty and unusual, this tubular peach colored flower. And check it out. Here is what the seed pod looks like. And this is the first season for this plant. This was a gallon 4 or 5 months ago, and it's gotten much larger since then, and it's producing seeds the first year. That is really cool. So these seeds will get 2 or 3 times larger than what you see here. This seed pod will ripen up, the outside will get black and kind of mushy, and you peel that away and you can plant these seeds and grow more oleanders. That's how I grow all of mine. I have plenty of these for sale if you're interested. I have gallon plants for $15. Just let me know if you're interested. But once you get yours established, you'll have all that you can grow because it makes a ton of seed. Now on this side, you'll recognize more of those star jasmine. This plant's doing really well. And I've got this area composted in and mulched in again with more of that organic compost. And this has done really well for me on the east side of the house. This is a trailing morning glory. It is called Blue Daze, and this thing has been flowering all summer. This makes a wonderful ground cover. Really happy with the way this Blue Daze is working out. I really don't see many pollinators on it, so if that's a knock against it, I would say lack of pollinators, but maybe I haven't noticed them, but there's really nothing going on pollinator-wise or critter-wise, and I really like to grow plants that take care of the local bugs and whatnot. Another one of those star jasmine, more of the Blue Daze. Now I will say it is very low maintenance. I don't have to water it that often. It does really great on the east side of the house, so we get some afternoon shade. So if you're looking for a low maintenance perennial that flowers pretty much all summer, this Blue Daze is a really nice choice. More of the jasmine, and then I did an experiment this year where I planted some melons over on the east side of the house, and they've done really well. I've had a bunch of these Charente melons. It's basically a struggle between me and the birds to see who gets to them first. So as you can see, I've got that one. There's a big melon back there. I put it in a box to keep the birds from eating it. Those guys they're tricky and they're canny. They figure it out. They find those melons. So, but I've had plenty this year. This is my succession planting of these melons. I grew a bunch of them in that large raised bed that we started this video on, but they've done really well in the summer on the east side of the house where they get some afternoon shade. I've never grown fall tomatoes before, but this year I'm going to give it a try. So I started a bunch from seed a few weeks ago, and they're germinating really well. I've got some of those Patio Choice yellow and red cherry tomatoes, and they're doing quite well. And then I've got 3 new varieties of dwarf tomato. If you're interested in dwarf tomatoes, just Google Dwarf Tomato Project. I've got Egypt Yellow. I've got one that's called Noah Stripes. And then I've got Galahad. Actually, there's 2 of the dwarf tomatoes and 1 Galahad, which is a fantastic slicer that's done really well for me. And then here I have more of those Victoria Blue Salvia. Remember those beautiful blue plants that we started out the video on? Well, I start those from seed. They're really easy to grow from seed and they grow fast. So I'm always planting new stuff. Also on the east side of the house, I have my herb garden, my container herb garden. And so over here, I've got this beautiful oregano plant. I had to put it into a bigger pot just because I couldn't keep it watered when it was in the smaller one. So the oregano's looking really good. I've got some chives, I've got rosemary, and also some of this German winter thyme, all started from seed. So herbs are really easy to start from seed. They can be expensive when you buy them, so if you have the time and the space, try to start them from seed. Now behind those aren't herbs, those are violets. I had those over on the west side of the house and they were just getting wiped out by the sun. So I potted them up, I'll put them over on the east side. I need to put them in a spot where they don't get quite as much sun. And there's more of those violets as well. And then here's some gallon container herbs. I put these in swimming pools and keep them watered from below. It really helps me keep stuff watered in the summertime when it's not raining. And we've had such a small amount of rain this year. This has been a big help. I've got rosemary and oregano. I have thyme, creeping thyme, and I'll be selling plants at the West End Lions Club annual Christmas event here in Jamaica Beach. If I'm not mistaken, it's on December the 22nd. I'll double check and and confirm that on the screen. But come see us in Jamaica Beach. It's on Saturday. There'll be 40 or 50 vendors, and I'll be there selling plants. Every garden should have a compost bin, and building them out of pallets is fast and very inexpensive. I picked these pallets up for free, so the cost was basically my time and a handful of wood screws. And about 3 weeks ago, I emptied out this entire bin. It was filled all the way to the top with 100% organic compost. I put it directly into the garden, and it cost me nothing. So really, I'm happy with this. So basically, all you do is stack up your green material. There's a bunch of coffee filters with coffee on top there, some browns, some greens, there's grass clippings in there. I get a lot of plant residue in the garden and when just pruning up plants, and so it's great to have them here. So I don't have a compost fork, so it's kind of hard to move this stuff. I'm gonna pick one of those up this week. But this entire stack is gonna be moved to this bin, and then I'll pile it all the way up to the top, and then within the next couple of months, I'll have another entire bin of compost. Now, I save all of my grass clippings as well. It's one of my favorite mulches for the garden and for my beds. And so I keep the grass clippings over here, and as you can see, I stuck another one of those Charentier melons. I had an extra plant, so I just planted it in the compost bin, and look how beautiful it is. It is doing so well, covered in flowers. Here's the melons down here, you can see. Love these Charentier French cantaloupes. I've harvested 4 or 5 off this plant already, and I've got more over here. Actually, I've got 2 inside this box, but I covered it up. I covered up the melons and put a rock on it because the birds have been outsmarting me, but see how they do on those guys. And then on the backside, check this out. Really happy with this. These are Passionflower vines, and this is the host plant for the Gulf Fritillary butterfly. And if you plant Passionflower vine, you will definitely have those butterflies, and they're one of my favorite. They're so much fun. They look a bit like a monarch, but they're a brighter orange, and they flitter and flutter around everywhere. It's just so much fun having butterflies. And check it out. I knew we was gonna have some caterpillars in here. So there's one right there. Let me get to where you can see in the light. They love Passionflower vine, and the caterpillar is really pretty as well. So I've got 5 or 6 butterflies around here now. There's the caterpillar. All I can tell you is plant it, and they will come like clockwork. If you have Gulf Fritillary butterflies in your region, plant Passionflower vine. The flowers are gorgeous, and the butterflies are even more gorgeous. Now behind the house, I have another set of raised beds. Of course, if you've watched my videos, you know I'm a fan of these round Birdies raised beds. You can pick these up at Epic Gardening. Just love these raised beds. And I also had Earth Creations Landscaping several years ago build these cedar timber raised beds. I got the blueprint from Joe Gardner. Check out the Joe Gardner podcast and Growing a Greener World on PBS. It's really my favorite gardening resource, but he has a bunch of these guys. I built 2, and then I've got them all mulched in with this really nice aromatic cedar mulch. Again, inflation has really taken a bite out of things. These were $250 or so last year, and they're up to $450 or $475, so almost 2x in price, but still. I bought a bunch of this cedar mulch. It smells great. It repels insects. It suppresses weeds, and it looks great as well. So really happy with the way this turned out. And then there's not much left in my raised beds behind the house just because of the heat. I pulled up a bunch of stuff. I've got a bunch of peppers that are still growing. So these are Datil hot orange peppers. I've got 2 or 3 of them. I've got 4 of them there. I've got more of the Datil peppers over there, and you can see the orange peppers peeking through. I picked a bunch of them this weekend, but they are still covered in flowers and peppers. I've got a few jalapenos down here that are finally getting established a little bit, so we should have plenty of jalapenos through the fall and winter. And then on this side, I've got some thyme. I'm gonna probably pot these up and plant them in the ground or sell them. I want to make sure I'm growing mostly food in these raised beds. And I know herbs are food, but I don't need this much time, and I've got plenty in that container that you saw just a few minutes ago. Now on this side, this is a discovery I made this year. This is sweet Alyssum. I planted this around some tomato plants. It's a good companion plant for tomatoes. In theory, it attracts these beneficial wasps that will parasitize the tomato hornworms. But I found they've been a really nice ground cover even in the dead of summer. I haven't watered these very much and they're still very green. So this is a great idea for ground cover. You can get sweet alyssum in various colors. Most often you'll find it with white flowers. Maybe if I can find a picture, I'll throw it up here, but really happy with the way this turned out. Super tough ground cover, handles the heat, handles full afternoon sun, so I'm gonna use sweet alyssum more going forward. And then here's a few peppers. 2 of them are struggling, as you can see. I do have one that's hanging in there. These are my Auxilio, thin-skinned Italian red peppers. They really don't care for this heat that we've had in the summertime, but this guy's still hanging in there, so maybe I'll get a few peppers. Now, of course, you can't go wrong growing basil. Basil looks good, handles the heat. Pollinators love it. Something green in the garden. And you should probably be clipping off these flowers. It tends to get bitter once it goes to flower, but also like it to flower because then it takes care of the pollinators. The butterflies all love flowering herbs. And then over here you can see more of my kiddie pools that I use as my from below watering system. I've just got a handful of various plants here. Some society garlic over there. I've got a couple of really pretty what are those called? The mosquito plants, although I'm not sure they repel mosquitoes. Citronella, that's what they are. Some random plants down here, some peppermints, some chives. Everything is popping today after we had about a 1/4 inch of rain yesterday. It is amazing how much better plants look when they get some rain. It's not just the city water, but check it out. Here's some of those oleanders I was talking about. I grew all of these from seed. You can start them directly in the garden. You can put them in 4-inch pots. You usually get 50-60% germination rate, so it makes a ton of seed. So once you get your plant established, you'll have plenty more. And check out these datil peppers, covered in orange peppers, and just the flowers, covered in flowers. Hundreds more peppers on the way, so I can't even keep up with these things. The datil, it's a hot orange pepper, super prolific, makes a ton of peppers. So we've made the loop around the house and we're back to this large raised bed. And the only thing left in this bed is Petra purple basil. I love this basil, and this thing is just buzzing with bees right now. You may not be able to see them, but trust me, there's a ton of bees in there. And I'm letting these things flower and go to seed. And so I will collect seed from this Petra purple basil. I'll never have to buy it again. Collecting basil seed is one of the easiest types of seed that you can collect yourself. So let it flower, let it dry out completely, and then you just harvest off these seed pods, these flowers, and inside, it's blurry, I apologize, you can't see that, but there's seed in here already. I'll let it dry out for another week or 2 and then harvest it when it is fully dry. But grow basil, let it flower for the pollinators, and then collect your own seed. So here's one more row of plants. These are all facing west, so they get full afternoon sun. Now this is a tropical milkweed. Now I would prefer to grow the native milkweed, but I struggle to grow native milkweed. So I add tropical milkweed when I can, and then I just cut it back in the fall to avoid the issues that come with tropical milkweed. But check it out. I've had a bunch of caterpillars. A lot of these branches have been eaten. A lot of the leaves have been eaten. So I've had quite a few monarch caterpillars, which is really exciting. Now, next to that, I've got more of the Victoria Blue Salvia, and this is just a superstar. It flowers all summer long. The pollinators love it. It comes back from freezes. I will always grow Victoria Blue Salvia. More tropical milkweed, more Victoria Blue Salvia, and turns out those plants go really well together. Now, there is a hibiscus plant in there. I've had a few hibiscus over the years. They always freeze, and this is the only one that has survived the freeze cycle, so that's the last one I'm going to buy. Another tropical milkweed here, and this is Mistflower. This is one of my favorite perennials. It's a little burned up, but you know what? It doesn't really matter. This is a superstar perennial. Does really well for me. Flowers pretty much year round. By the end of the summer, it might be a pile of brown sticks. I'll just clear those away. It'll be green again in the wintertime and just continue its flowering cycle. Super easy to grow. Now remember I mentioned that milkweed before? Check it out. This is the first one I've seen this year. I mean, I've had a few monarchs, but I've never seen one that is just fresh out of the chrysalis. And that guy is, because that's what they do. They kind of just hang around until their wings dry out. But really happy to see a beautiful monarch butterfly just hanging out on this Mexican oleander volunteer. And then right next to that, this is another one of those passion vines that I planted. So this is the host plant for the Gulf Fritillary. Monarch butterflies like Asclepias, which is the milkweed family. Now, a few more to talk about. Really happy with this guy. This is a pretty common plant that you'll find in the area. This is a Mexican Petunia. A neighbor gave me this one, and check it out. It's just beautiful. Now, it can be very aggressive, so I keep this mulched in with grass clippings, and I keep it pruned up around the edges so it doesn't get too out of control. But it's been a superstar. It's facing due west. It doesn't look great, but it is flowering quite a bit. It's just lack of rain is really beating up this plant. But really happy with this. Really like Mexican Petunia. And next to that, these are some spider lilies that the same neighbor gave me, also suffering a bit in the heat. But look, they're also putting out new plants, so it doesn't mind this spot at all. Those are new shoots that are coming from underground. These guys will bounce back when it cools off a little bit, and they'll be flowering again in no time. And more of those Mexican oleanders. Look how big these guys are. So these were planted this year from gallons, and they're already approaching 6 feet tall. Now, if they don't freeze to the ground, they can grow up to 20 feet tall. I tend to keep mine pruned back in more of a bush shape versus letting them grow tall to a tree. But I've got 3 of them here. Maybe I'll let the middle one grow tall and the 2 on the sides. On second thought, maybe that's not a great idea. Anyway, these guys look great. Big fan of these Mexican oleanders. Great in containers. Great planted directly in the ground. If you need some, let me know. I've got gallons for sale for $15 each. And this final plant's looking a little shabby. This is a Copper Canyon daisy. The heat's taking its toll, although it's still hanging in there. I don't water this plant. I think I've watered over here once this summer. That was just last week, but you just kind of let this guy be. It smells great even when it's not flowering. And it'll start flowering again with these beautiful yellow flowers sometime in November, December, and then flower right through early spring. And then one more to talk about. Another of those Mistflowers. Look how pretty this is. This is a volunteer. So I've got 2 beautiful Mistflower volunteers, and I just left it there. I mean, why not, right? There's no reason to pull it up. It just popped up there. It likes the spot. And then all the way back to where we started, or close to where we started, into my beautiful Victoria blue salvia that is just covered in these black carpenter bees, which I absolutely love. It's just a sign of the beach and Jamaica Beach and Galveston Island in general when you see all of these wonderful pollinators. So grow Victoria blue salvia, people, and you'll be as happy as I am. So thanks for watching. I know I haven't had much content lately. There just hasn't been much to talk about, but pretty soon I'll be starting my fall garden. So I'll be planting a whole bunch of stuff from seed, like beets and cilantro, lettuce, spinach, arugula. I'm gonna do some fall tomatoes, so stay tuned, check back in for all the latest goings on from Jamaica Beach, Texas. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so, and have yourself a fantastic day.